Hi, my name is Susan and welcome. Can you imagine ever in this lifetime living a life without any fear whatsoever, and you can actually create an abundant life that is geared to your desires, your full desires? Well, let me tell you, we have someone who is incredible that can take us on that journey and given us a full scope of understanding of what the process looks like. And here today we have Nicole Majik. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love that you're here. I love that you're here. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll dive into the guru.
All right, the guru within, right?
Yes.
Well, my name is Nicole Majik, as you just stated, and my background is actually in biology and chemistry. So I was a chemist for over 16 years, and I almost died from mercury poisoning, which is what got me out of chemistry. But I've also had my own business for the last 15 years. And that's been a wonderful journey of all kinds of things, all the magic and all the abundance, and meeting all different types of people to help them transition from scarcity mode to abundance mindset, and really creating this life of what it is that you want, and really honing in on what it is that you want, which is super, super important.
So how do you start that process? Now, you're going to have people that are going to come to you and they're already at different levels in their journey. So what do you use for a baseline to get that information of where to navigate those people to get to where they need to go?
That's a great question. And what I tend to do is I have an assessment that I do. And it's a pretty in-depth assessment that goes over 10 core negative limiting beliefs. And then what I do is I analyze that assessment, and then I rank those beliefs that are standing out in order of like a little hierarchy, so to speak, of which ones are actually creating a lot of chaos and mayhem in their lives. And then when I go over that analysis with them, I do a mind map with that. So I really get into the stories behind what those beliefs are creating in the life. And during that process we hone in on the biggest belief that is creating the havoc that they're seeing in their life, the self-sabotage and all of the pains and the sufferings that you see and that ripple out in all the areas. And then once we do that, then we can dive right in and start changing those beliefs. So
would you say it starts with that golden brain that you have highlighted? So what happens with the golden brain? How do you get to the golden brain? What is that all about? And why is it called the golden brain?
Oh, great questions. The golden brain is I guess it's a label, right, that you put on, that people have put on those who have that ability to look at things from neither right nor left brained. They actually operate from right in the center. And since I was a kid, I was in all of these, they called it the Gifted Kids program. So through my entire elementary school period, I was in these programs, and we had all kinds of interesting things that we did, and we got to do I think we were tested a lot, but that's a different story for a different day. But we were tested a lot, and every time we did these brain tests, I was smack dab in the middle. Growing up, I thought that was boring. But then I realized it's really not. It's a great place to be because you can see things from so many different angles and really understand not just things about yourself in certain perspectives, but things about everybody else around you.
So what would you say across the board is the number one limiting belief that's very popular?
Ooh, There are several because they kind of dovetail together. So there are a few different beliefs, and if I can kind of preface it by saying the three things that everyone needs to feel fulfilled is to feel safe and secure, to feel loved and accepted, and to be empowered. And it's those things that attack those areas the most, and they have to do with the sense of belonging, the sense of autonomy, your independence, and love. Really. And safety and security, of course.
Yeah. I think people are under the understanding that love is out there instead of it being within.
Yes, that's huge.
Yeah. And so in order to get into that within love, there's all those tons of layers of that onion to peel back. And so how long is the process of your curriculum? Because you do have a curriculum, correct?
I do, and
okay.
It depends on what program that I'm working with you with. And it also depends on where you're at, because I'm going to meet you where you're at, and then I'm going to bring you step by step into next layers. I like to call them diving boards because, first you have to get in the pool. And some people, that might be the kiddie pool with the floaties on and all of that. But once you start getting into that, doing a little bit of the work, people tend to do a little bit more of that conscious work and doing a little bit of self-development. You start dabbling in, you start finding things out about yourself, and you start exploring. And then you get into these places where this is really fun until you hit the wall. When you hit the wall, it's usually because you're coming against limiting beliefs that are so subconsciously ingrained and may or may not even be yours, because that's another fun part, is that they can be passed down epigenetically through the lineage. So you adopt these beliefs.
So is there a time limit to this?
No, because all your life, if you're growing, you're continuously growing, or like I like to say, is climbing up to the next diving board, because every time you reach the next level diving board, what is happening? You go higher up, so when you jump off, you dive deeper.
So what would be the tools that you would give someone that has come on board and wants to work with you? And so what would that look like? Like from beginning, middle, and end. Somebody's having a trigger moment, or somebody feels that they can't. Like, what would you suggest as to assist them? Because I would assume that it's not just exposing the curriculum, but also, having to be there to support your client no matter what.
Absolutely, especially when we're dealing with different things that trigger into behaviors, right? Because our beliefs, then when something happens that triggers us, it triggers a belief that's deep inside. And that belief then sends a signal that a thought and a feeling start to come out. And with that thought and feeling, those are the mediators that then prompt a certain type of action or behavior or reaction, if you will, too. And then that behavior is elicited in a way that may be in a negative light of who you are. So when somebody gets triggered, there are different things that can happen. So it depends on what we're working on, that I give different tools, techniques of how to calm very quickly. It could be a breathing technique. It could be, I work with a lot of NLP and CBT. And
what is the CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, to quickly change a state of emotion. And so I work with my clients in a way that helps them transition. So in their triggering moments, if we haven't quite erased the belief yet, they have the tools to use inside of a situation to shift very quickly and get them back into a calm and rational thinking.
That is great. Now, what else do you do? Do you also incorporate, like, I know you have something to do with the auras. How does that play a factor into it? Like, do you incorporate it, or is that something separate?
I think it's just naturally incorporated because I've seen auras since I was pretty much born. As far as I can remember, I've seen colors and energies around people, so I actually use my intuitive aspect to myself and how I relate with other people to utilize that and bring that into what we're working on together as client and professional. So that way there, I can use it to hone in on what that person really wants, how they're really feeling, because it prompts different questions that I'll see an energetic flare that comes up if there's something that's not aligned with what someone's saying. So it might be something they're saying in a subconscious way because they have ingrained beliefs. So when I prompt and ask some questions to get clarity, they have an aha moment.
Oh my God, they must feel like liberated and free.
It is a very freeing and liberating experience. And even, I'm thinking about some of the things that my clients have said where they're like, oh my God, you told us, even in a group coaching session, you told us you were going to do this. So I would just mention, this is what I'm going to do. These are the steps I'm going to take you through. And then they have this moment at the end going, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how deep we were able to go with something so simple.
Wow, that's profound. So what do you see in them after you see them really going forth in their journey with you? What do you start to see, like in their body language, in their vocabulary, their mindset? Right off the rip, what do you start noticing?
I start seeing a ton more confidence because that comes from the clarity that we get. The clarity and the focus are the number one because we really hone in on what it is that they want and what's aligned with their truth, their passion, their purpose, their values. And a lot of times people come to me and they don't really know what they want. So we tackle that, and then in that process of unfolding, we get into all of the opening up, that clarity, the focus, confidence, and then I see their authentic self coming out. And they realize, because in the beginning they feel, I don't really know what I want, so is this going to be worth it? Because that's a stem from, am I worth it?
Yes.
Am I worth the
That's
work,
the
the time, right?
Yeah.
And I hold this space of non-judgment and this space that's safe and secure and this full of love so that people can open up and be in that vulnerable, safe place to then explore who they are. And when we do a little bit of that, they uncover these layers, and then that aha moment, the light in their eyes that comes out, and it's just like, and it ripples out in this sensation that, oh my goodness, because it feels like we're all going to jump up and down. And I love that because that then cascades into so much, because it doesn't matter what you come to me for. Whatever the belief is, you're coming to me because it's paining you in a particular space. So it could be financial, right? People come to me for a 5-day money challenge to really shift the relationship with money. And what ends up happening is their relationships with everyone else shifts too. So I get texts and emails and questions like, should this be happening in my relationship with my spouse, my partner? Does I remember receiving this text from somebody saying, should I be seeing this happen in, my sex drive increasing?
Nice.
And I'm like, ooh, yay, go with that,
Yes.
right? Because it's ripple affecting and bringing in the joy and the happiness and the fulfillment in the life, so that goes out to everything.
And if anyone who understands Reiki, that's your root chakra, your Kundalini. So once that's rooted and balanced, well, that's where all the abundance is coming besides the solar plex. But it's interesting how it all just... So I went online and I looked up your quiz. There's 17 questions to your quiz. So there were two that jumped out at me. So I'm gonna read it to you because I'm just curious.
Okay.
What would you say to a client? Do you fail to give yourself the love, compassion, and understanding that you give others? Where do you think that's coming from?
Oh, that's coming from people pleaser mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not putting yourself first, not seeing your worth and your value.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements and flavors, I like to say, of abandonment in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody isn't giving you the time,
Mm-hmm.
the energy, the love, the attention that you're craving back when you were a child, you tend to, because you're dependent on them,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to continue to love them and then start to not love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it shifts into this place of, I need to please others to show that I'm worthy of any kind of attention.
Wow. Do you get easily discouraged over what seems like a lack forward progress with your goals? Where do you think that's stemming from?
High standards. You have high standards for yourself because maybe you grew up in an environment that was super critical or had these high standards on you, a lot of responsibilities that maybe shouldn't even be yours. And so you're held to these high standards or a high sense of criticism, and then you ripple that out as now you hold these very high standards for yourself, and then those high standards then propagate out to you holding those high standards for other people. And the tricky thing is on that is in relationships, that can carry forward into the relationships where you can use it as an excuse to bag out, because if you hold these high standards for somebody and you're afraid of that abandonment, then you will use it as the excuse to leave very quickly so that you don't get hurt. Because if they can't meet your high standards, because everyone's just going to disappoint me anyway. And then you can go out. You can exit out of that relationship instead of facing what's really underneath.
That's pretty in-depth. Now, how does boundaries play in all of this, and how crucial would you say boundaries is? And is it a must? Is it a must?
Boundaries are a must.
Why?
Because the boundaries serve a dual purpose, because the boundaries show what you are willing to accept in your life. So it's your personal space. Like if we look at it as a personal space, here's my personal space. Susan, I don't want you to come past here. If somebody's a close talker and they're right up in your face, it's uncomfortable, right? So a boundary sets the limit on what I'm comfortable with around whomever I'm around, or situational. And those boundaries also show other people how to treat you. Because if you say, no, please stand an arm's length apart from me, I'm comfortable here. Maybe it's your eyesight. I just can't see somebody who's right up in my face. And you show that person that you can do it in a loving way. Like, this makes me uncomfortable. Please stand over here. And that's okay. Because, I didn't realize that. Most of my family does this. So it's not necessarily being rude. It's just merely showing somebody what it is that you will accept.
Go a little deeper with that.
Yeah.
You're in a work environment.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, there's these boundaries that you got to have, and, you know, you don't have a team player. Not everybody's a team player. You're trying to get them on board, not because, you know, you want them to just do what you need them to do, when essential, that is what it is, but it's not about who's right, who's wrong. So how do you get someone who's being so defiant and really lacking the consideration? And yeah, so what would that look like? How do you get somebody difficult to get on board in respecting those boundaries because you're part of the team?
That is a great question. And when I was working in chemistry, I was leading a team, and I had to deal with 8 other departments in our division. So in those 8 departments, there were also many different teams. So I had to work with a lot of other team leaders, and not everybody is the easiest to work with, right?
Well, it's those personalities, you know.
Of course. And where personalities might clash and limiting beliefs, all of these things come out in that work environment, because sometimes you're put into a role that goes a little bit against your personality. So you have to be something else, at least for a temporary period, right? You might have to be an extrovert when you're really introverted. So that's a good example of that. Have to deal with all these different people. I have to talk. I have to give presentations. And I just want to sit at my desk and do my work, right? So when you're having a bunch of different people and different personalities, and it depends a little bit on the situation, I would say, and how I would handle certain things. But we'll kind of go into a vague situation here, where if somebody's being really difficult, are they always being difficult? Because it could be part of their personality, it could be part of a belief system that they have, and it also could be part of, maybe they don't like their job, or maybe they don't like their life. So we never know what somebody is going through, so always approach a situation like this with an open mind on, where is this person coming from? Get curious, because instead of saying, hey, you need to do this, get this stuff done because we have a deadline here, come on, let's go. Nobody wants to be treated like that or feel like they're just getting chop, let's get this done.
So is that the conscious leader role?
This is the conscious leader role, yes.
Okay, so how do you pause when you have 50 million things going on and you're that leader, if you will? So how did you handle that when you had a scope under your umbrella of a team?
Tight timelines, short-staffed, people, you know, having to redo experiments sometimes too, and now we have to work overtime to get things done, right? So instead of basically slave driving, we want to get everyone on board. We have to have a shared vision. We have to see things and know what our roles and responsibilities are, right? When people don't know these things, they go into these modes of, they're scared, they're not sure. Any insecurities that come out will be amplified and blow something up. So pausing for a short period of time is way better than looking back and then having to clean up a big huge mess or not meeting a timeline, right? So how long does it take? So I'm going to ask a question, flip a question back just for contemplation in this situation, is how long does it take to sit down with somebody for, it could be 10 minutes, it could be a half an hour, to understand where they're coming from. Hey, Susan, I'm seeing something here and I'm not quite understanding it. Can we just have a quick discussion so that we can get on the same page, because I want to explain a few things to you, and I need to understand where you're coming from so that I can ask you if you want to do some things that might be really helpful, because I need some help, right? And then if you sit down with that person and they're going, oh my God, you know, my mom just went into the hospital, there's stuff happening, there's stuff going on with my kid, and you see that their home life is super stressful. And now we were just about to pile on super stress from work. You could break somebody, right? But instead you say, okay, so how can I support you right now? Because here's what we have to do here, and this is what I saw you doing. Is that going to be too much? Do we need to pull somebody in? Is there somebody that you like to work with that we can kind of share some responsibilities so we can all work together to get this done? That's what that looks like. Because sometimes you just have to figure out what your team needs, because they're going to need your help. They're going to need your support. They're going to need to know that they are safe, that you do have their back, even when you have tight timelines. So you ask them to help solve this issue. Okay, this is what we need to do. What can you take, and what do we need to allocate to someone else?
So essentially, it's both, both needing the support, the leader, the director, and that staff person, whoever is in that predicament, that would need that understanding, that mature level of understanding. So
they might even be able to take on more because their anxieties about not being able to fulfill their job may be quelled just by you showing that support, because then they're not anxious and worried about not delivering. So if they need to just take it down one notch, they'll be able to really put their effort in and focus, because they're not worried about messing something up, not delivering, because they have some stressful things. And also, if the leader knows that, hey, Joe's going through a whole bunch of stuff at home, then that leader can easily be able to allocate somebody else that if there was an emergency, all hell isn't going to break loose.
That's pretty amazing. But obviously you have to be at a place consciously and mature to really understand the dynamics and to pivot and learn how to pause. Because I think some people think that pause is equivalent to stopping. Like, we're just stopping this. Right. And it's not.
Not at all.
It just means be in the present moment.
Yes.
And just be aware, connect, but detach. And even that is a difference. Connect with everybody and see what's going on around you, but detach from it so you can make the proper decision that's not emotional on the egocentric side, I would say.
Right. And also asking people, how can I support you right now, is super important, because sometimes, and this isn't just for work, this is for all of your relationships. If your spouse or your loved one or your child is having a tough time or processing through something, just by asking, how can I best support you right now, is the most important question that you can ask, because you don't know how you can support them. Sometimes they don't know how you can support them, and it gives them that space to think about it and say, you know what? This is what support looks like for me right now. And sometimes it's, where we want to go in for a hug and do all this stuff. Maybe it's, if you just sit there, just your presence is allowing me to feel safe. You don't have to say anything. Sometimes it's, can you just listen? Don't give advice, just listen. Sometimes somebody might want your advice. So let them tell you what it is that's going to be helpful for them.
Awesome. Any last advice that you would want the people to know that can make a great, huge impact in just one small direction?
start asking yourself what you really want and really start digging into who you are, because the more you know about yourself, the more you will know about everybody around you. And all of these things, when you work on yourself, it ripple effects through everyone that you have a connection with. It's really quite magical.
It is. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Susan, for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and for sharing what you do and the steps to it. So, till then, see you soon. Bye.